Dive into the dynamic world of school psychology as we sit down with Julie Shaw, a licensed school psychologist passionate about unraveling the mysteries of student success. Discover why school psychologists are high in demand nationwide and why Julie believes it's a field worth exploring for those with a keen interest in education and a love for variety. This is Career Chats with Katie and Robin.
Welcome, Jolie. We're so excited to have you on Career Chats today.
Thank you for having me.
To begin, why don't you tell us what you do and give an example of what a typical day might look like on the job?
So I am a licensed school psychologist from K to 12th grade, but primarily right now I work through K through 8. So I work with a wide range of students, and a typical day is honestly different for every single school psychologist you will meet. And that's what really makes my job interesting and exciting, because I could look at my day and think, oh, I have this. But then 9 o'clock comes and all of a sudden I don't have this. I might have to change things around or go support a teacher or go support a student. And that's really what I like about it, because every day is different. What I do at my job is I try to support teachers and I support students. Sometimes there's roadblocks to, accessing education, and maybe a student is struggling in one area and maybe they're doing really well in another area. So we just try to find their strengths to help support them in other areas to make them succeed throughout their day and in life.
Is it a lot of like one-on-one counseling or?
So we can do some counseling. That is something that school psychologists are trained to do. We also help with crisis intervention. So if there is something that happens at the school, with maybe students, their families, teachers, administrators, we can definitely help in those areas as well. But primarily my job is to figure out how students learn. So I have a wide variety of assessments that I have access to. And when we are trying to kind of figure out the mystery of what is going on with a student and how can we help them, I have a lot of tools that I can use to figure out what's going on. And some of those assessments are intelligence assessments. So looking at their overall cognitive abilities, their strengths and weaknesses. And then there's also academic assessments. And those assessments look at different areas, typically reading, writing, and math, looking at if a student has a disability in one of those areas. And then what do we do? So we've identified the disability, but then what can we do next to help them? We work as a team with teachers, occupational therapists, speech and language pathologists, the principal, the parent, who's the most important team member. We really come together to try to figure out what is going on. How can we help the student succeed? And that's my favorite part, is trying to figure out what to do next. Once we identify what the issue is, how can we then move forward and help them?
So you're like crucial when it comes to like IEPs and 504s and giftedness then.
Absolutely. That's definitely the area that I lead. So we definitely lead those meetings. We, in Ohio, we have what's called evaluation team report. I lead that process and we pull a bunch of information. We assess a student, and then if they qualify for special education services, they are on an individualized education plan, and we can recommend different interventions to help them in those areas. 504 plans, same thing. There is an evaluation component of that as well. And not just with academics and with cognitive assessments, we also look at social emotional needs, making sure that, students are healthy in those areas, and, looking at those strengths and weaknesses, because it's really important to make sure that we understand the whole child and not just looking at one specific area.
I love hearing this kind of supportive network for students. I don't remember that growing up.
It's interesting that you say that, because I don't either. I look back at growing up and I'm like, I don't know who my school psychologist was. And that is something that's really important to note, is that there is such a strong need for school psychologists right now. We have a nationwide shortage. So that is something that we need. We need people interested in this. If you are somebody who is interested in education, maybe you want to be a teacher, but maybe it's not exactly right for you and you're trying to figure out, what you want to do, school psychology might be the perfect fit for you.
I love that. So how did you find yourself in this job? Was it something you always thought about? I mean, obviously not if you didn't know the job existed. So how did you get here?
No, and that's a good point. I remember thinking like, wait, this is a thing? I didn't even know this existed. So basically, I used to be really interested in deaf education, and my background is actually working as an educational interpreter. That's actually where I got my bachelor's degree in. But what happened was I would find myself in classrooms with students and be like, I really wonder what is happening behind the scenes. Like, how do we know if this student needs this assistance or this student needs this? Who is making those decisions? Who is making sure that those students are in the right place and that they're getting the interventions that they need and that they're in the right placement for them? That idea really interests me. So I did some investigation and I was trying to figure out who is this person. Finally figured out that it was a school psychologist. And I went onto the national website, which is National Association of School Psychologists, which is nasponline.org. They have a whole tab of, what is a school psychologist? What do we do? And they have job postings, and it's just a really wonderful resource. And that's where I gleaned all of my information about school psychology. And then from there, I decided to interview some school psychologists, ironically, in the school that I went to growing up.
Oh, funny.
Yeah, I tracked that person down because I really wanted to figure it out. I remember meeting with them, and one of the first things they said was, my day is different every single day. And that is something, as I said earlier, is that I'm interested in. I don't really want to be doing the same thing every day. And I really love working with people. And that is just something that, and I'm like, this is it. I just know that this is the path for me. And it's been wonderful. And I really, looking back, I am so thankful that I found this career.
Right. So how did you make that transition? You already had a bachelor's degree. What were the requirements to then become a school psychologist?
So my program, the requirements were, I think it was like a background in either education or psychology. But if you were more education, I think you had to have a few basic psychology classes, and probably vice versa, where if you were in psychology, you had to have a few education courses. So I applied to my school, and then my program was, after 1 year, I got what's called a Master's of Developmental Psychology. And then from there, year 2 and 3, I worked to get my specialist in school psychology. So typically you're in school for 2 years, and then your 3rd year is a full year internship where you are working right underneath a school psychologist in the schools. And it's really lovely because you eventually gain a lot of independence. And at the end of that school year, you're pretty much acting as the school psychologist.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So is it always a master's program like this, or is there a way to do it just as a bachelor's?
No, there's always going to be a master's component.
Okay.
And most likely a specialist level after that.
Okay.
I would say you're looking at 3 years at minimum if you're looking for a specialist level. Some school psychologists choose to get a doctoral degree or a doctorate degree in school psychology, and that's another option. So I have a specialist level degree, and I am licensed to practice both in the schools, and I'm also licensed to practice independently through our Ohio School Psychology Board.
Okay. So down the road, if you did want to pivot and have a private practice or something, you can do that?
Absolutely. In Ohio, I can do that. It varies state by state. But as I was referring to earlier, that website, nasponline.org, they actually have a pretty nice graph of who can practice independently with what certification. So
awesome. So knowing that you do lots of different things, every day is different, what is your favorite part about the job?
My favorite part, okay, and I'm gonna mention my company that I work for because I absolutely love them. So I work for Total Education Solutions, and we have a regional office in Ohio. And I feel like they really play to my interest in doing different things and being involved in different things. So I actually help to manage our school psychology team that is throughout Ohio, and I love our school psychologists. It's absolutely wonderful to work with them. I really love working with kids directly, but also I love working with adults, the administrators, school counselors, parents, staff, students themselves, siblings, whoever. And I love that part. So just working with people is really my favorite part.
And we always have to ask, what's your least favorite part?
Oh, my least favorite part. So if you're a school psychologist listening to this right now and you are in Ohio, you know what I'm going to say. And I'm going to say the paperwork. We have a lot of paperwork and it's very redundant. It definitely, the paperwork then helps our students get the services they need. So I do understand some of it, but it is a lot. And I hopefully it'll cut down eventually.
Yeah. Wow. So what kind of personalities do you think would thrive in the day-to-day work environment that you do?
People who like people, I think, is really important. And also people who are kind of like detectives, because I really feel like anytime I get a student where I'm trying to figure out how to help them the best, it really is like a puzzle. And I'm trying to figure out, okay, what is it that we can really assist the student moving forward? Is there a specific intervention that we can help with? Should we tweak where they're receiving the services or how they're receiving the services? So that part is really important. I think that's how somebody could really thrive in this role, is kind of having that people, interaction and good interpersonal skills, but then also that scientific curiosity.
Love that.
So what would you tell someone who's thinking about entering the field?
Come on in.
So welcoming. I love it.
So welcoming. Yes. No, we really need people. But truly, I really think that it's a really wonderful field. Like I said, it is something different every day, but also too, that's my position where it's different every day. Sometimes as a school psychologist, maybe you're assigned to one building and maybe you have more of a specific job, and that's something that would entice you in that way. But yeah, I would say definitely look into it and keep an open mind. And even though it's 3 years of coursework, it's definitely worth it in the end.
So how does what you do now kind of fit in with your projected career path? Is this what you plan on doing for a while, or is there obvious next steps that you want to take?
I really like where I'm at. I don't see myself going anywhere else. I see myself continuing to build leadership skills and just continuing to provide good services, trying to learn more about individualized education plans, because I'm usually more of the evaluation person, but I'm also now trickling into those other areas to help out in those respects too. So
is there anything else that you want our listeners to know about the job itself or becoming a school psychologist?
Going into this field, and I'm sure other professions would feel similar, when you first start out, even when you're in school and you first start out, you're thinking, oh my gosh, this is a huge undertaking. I don't know everything. And you feel like you have to know everything because you're the school psychologist or you're the school psychologist intern. But that's really not the case. Our team is so important. And that's really what is so exciting about being a school psychologist. If we're ever meeting about a student and we're kind of going through trying to figure out how we can help the student, oftentimes I will lean towards my speech and language pathologist if there's a communication issue, or maybe our occupational therapist has some insight regarding fine motor skills or physical therapy, or, one of our behavioral specialists or teachers. It's really a team effort because you're not going to have all the answers. One person is not going to have all the answers. That's the biggest takeaway. So, if you go into it with an open mind and a learning mindset, that's really the best part.
And rely on your team. Use the other people who are also professionals. I love that.
Yes, use your resources. And, there's some really wonderful Facebook groups that school psychologists are, interact with. We share ideas and we really rev each other up because one thing that I did want to say too, and this is to parents who might be listening, school psychologists often get forgotten. We just had National School Psychology Week. And it's so important to acknowledge school psychologists. Maybe even if your student has never seen the school psychologist, maybe letting the principal know, hey, what are you doing for School Psychologist Week? We just celebrated it in early November, but maybe next year that's something to look into. We do a lot behind the scenes,
Okay, so just for fun, if you were not doing this, what job would you choose for yourself? Real or imaginary?
This is not even related, but I love thrifting and looking at estate sales and garage sales. So probably I might have my own estate sale business, but this is totally not even related to school psychology, but I love that stuff.
That's okay.
Yeah.
People are multifaceted.
So more related to the field, I really think that, the related services that I mentioned earlier, like the physical therapists, occupational therapists, speech and language pathologists, they're all extremely interesting to me and they have so much to give. That's another option, although I love where I'm at. So
we interviewed an occupational therapist in season 1 and Robin and I were both like, oh, we loved that.
Great job too.
I love it. Yeah, they're fantastic.
Julie, thank you so much for being here today. This was really great and we really appreciate it.
Yes, thank you.
Oh, no problem. I'm so happy. Thank you for having me.
Career Chats is hosted by Katie Huddleston and Robin Coney. Show notes and guest info can be found on our website, careerchats.show. If you enjoyed this episode, we'd love you to subscribe and share this podcast with your friends. Until next time, stay curious.